effective, if specious way of uniting the Greek states, who were bound to Philip II and his successor in the League of Corinth, and whose forces served under compulsion. The rhetorician Isocrates, following in the footsteps of his teacher Gorgias of Leontini, who promoted Panhellenism at Olympia in 408, had long anchored his pleas for Greek unity in the image of the great king as the common enemy of the Greeks, although it remained for Philip to give the idea military underpinning. Indeed, participation in a Panhellenic crusade against the age-old enemy gave lustre to the servitude imposed upon the Greeks by their new masters. Through the Greco-Macedonian lens, and with the benefit of hindsight, it is hard to imagine that the expedition against Persia would not have been a success. This book examines the campaign of Alexander from the viewpoint of the conquered peoples, both in mainland Greece and in the East, to the extent that this is possible without resorting to fantasy. Nevertheless, many of the interpretations are speculative, but they are based on the evidence available and attempt to add another dimension to the traditional story of Alexander's conquests. It is, of course, difficult to write an account from the vantage point of the defeated, when the losers of the struggle recorded very little about the conquest, much less about their own view of the enemy, their predicament, intentions, motivations, and actions. To most living in the Persian Empire, written history was an alien concept, and much of the information concerning the Achaemenid Empire, if it found its way into Greek histories, was filtered through the lens of the victor, who constructed a world for the barbarian that reinforced Western prejudices. The barbarian was defeated not only on the battlefield or through tenacious sieges, but also in the court of public opinion. No war crimes tribunals afforded the losers, for it is only losers who are subjected to such inquisitions, a chance to argue their cases. Those whom Alexander regarded as the worst offenders were summarily executed, even if, as in the case of Bessus, the aim was to mollify the native population. How the barbarians viewed Bessus and Barcentes, whether as regicides or martyrs, we cannot say. Nor, given the opportunity, would they have been permitted to speak freely in condemnation of the new master, for even the Macedonians voiced objections at their own peril. What the defeated thought of men such as Mazaeus or Artabazus is also unknown, but one may imagine that they were regarded by many as shameful collaborators. There are official documents, not many, from the losing side. These are simple records of fact, some taking the form of prophecies of events that had already occurred, others preserving practical measures taken to meet the crisis, but all devoid of meaningful comment or judgment. But although the surviving accounts were written in Greek and Latin, all of them long after the conqueror's death, there is more information about the defeated than many imagine. Greek mercenaries who fought in the great king's armies supplied the contemporary historians of Alexander with details concerning numbers, deployment, even tactics. If they themselves were not present at war councils, they could learn the essential arguments presented there from those empowered to relay instructions to their men. There were probably also leaks of more sensitive discussions. The activities of Memnon of Rhodes, whose importance is clearly exaggerated, must certainly have been reported by Greek eyewitness informants. But far more important were the accounts of affairs given by Persians who either were captured or came voluntarily into Alexander's service. Captives could be, and were, routinely interrogated. Laomedon of Mytilene, a naturalized Macedonian with estates in Amphipolis and described as bilingual, diglossos, was placed in charge of the barbarian prisoners of war. Furthermore, some prominent Persians had lived for an extended period at the court of Philip II. Hence, they were both well placed to assess the situations before, during, and after the war, and able to communicate, to some extent at least, with their conquerors in Greek. Plutarch tells a story of Alexander.